Hi, this is Jacek, and in this PHP tutorial I'm going to go over explain what the problem is with XSS attacks and show you how to prevent them becoming problems on your site. And to do that, we've got this simple guestbook example here that I've created for this video. I'm just going to very briefly, before we get into what XSS or cross-site scripting attack is, I'm going to very briefly go over how this works. So we have this page here, and all that happens is, say when I type a post in this box here, so this is a post, and hit post, it just appears above. So above here will be a list of posts, so we could add another one. This is another post, except we would spell another correctly. And you can see that they just get added one after the other. And this works using a database, which is why I've got phpMyAdmin open here. And it's working with this posts table in the guestbook database. So if we reload this browse window, you can see that these two posts have now shown up with ID 1 and 2. This is a post, this is another post. So this is a very simple system, and I'll just show you the code for it. So we're working in this folder here. So this guestbook.php is the actual page you saw. We also have this core folder, and now the core folder will contain the entire back end of the site, so it'll contain all the logic parts of it that don't control output, that only work with the database. So if we just open that up, you see we have this init.inc.php file, and this file will be included by all of the pages that need to work with, by all of the pages. And this file will connect to the database, and then it will include any files that we need that define various functions. And those files that define various functions are in this inc folder. If we just open that up, you'll see we've got this single file called guestbook.inc.php. Now this guestbook example is sort of like the comments system that you would see for a blog system. So if this was a blog system, you'd have a lot more than one file in here, which is why we have them in a separate folder. So this another thing I meant to say is this init file is similar to the connect.php that you may have seen before. Or may have used before. It's quite a common thing to do, and that, it's sort of the same as that essentially, except it's a bit more of an extension to that. So it also includes some files and would do anything else that you need to happen on all of the pages. Anyway, let's have a look at the code now. So we have this guestbook.php, which is the main page, and you can see that the first thing it does is include the init file I just mentioned. After that, it checks to see if a message has been sent using the form. If it has, it calls a function called addPost, just passing in a single parameter, which is the message. And then, obviously, regardless of if it has, there's no else here, so just next thing it does is fetches all of the posts from the database and stores them in a posts variable. This fetch posts function is also one that we'll be defining, or one that we have defined for this example. So then this posts variable is used down here in the for each loop just to output each message followed by a horizontal rule tag, and this just outputs each post separated by a line, and you saw that in the example a minute ago. And then following that, we just have the HTML form, which is a text area and a submit button. So these two functions are defined in this guestbook.inc.php file. If we just open that up, you'll see these two functions here. The first one, addPost, just adds a single post to the database. So it just performs a very simple insert query. It also does some escaping to prevent SQL injection becoming a problem. The second function, fetchPosts, just fetches a list of the posts from the database. It returns them as an array of messages, so then you can use it in the for each loop on your page, as I did. So the problem with this is that it's neglecting to sanitize the input sufficiently so that XSS attacks are still a problem. Now XSS, i.e. whoa, my volume has just changed, sorry about that, is a term that's more broadly used to refer to code injection. So the cross-site part of it is not necessarily always true, but the main problem is that people are, in this case, able to inject HTML code into your page, which can have very serious problems, because if they inject some JavaScript code, they can steal your users' cookies if any are set, and if they manage to get one of an admin, they can sort of take over that cookie and that session, because the cookie contains the session ID, and they can take over the session by sending that session ID. And providing you haven't secured against that, then they basically get admin access, which is obviously something you don't want to do. So, to demonstrate this, let's go back to our page, and say a user wanted to inject some HTML, like as a fairly trivial example, they could do no, this is a post, and they could make this bold by adding strong tags around it. Except they would spell strong right. Like so. If we hit post now, you can see we get this as bold. Now you may just think that doesn't matter, it's not important at all, that people are allowed to make things bold, but obviously that sort of is true, but they are able to do sort of much worse things. One of the main ones is sort of page defacing, so they can type stuff in here that will change the way your site looks in a more way. It's not restricted to just this line, what they post as well. They can affect the entire page. So one quite common one is just to end the body tag, like so, which will just sort of destroy the page basically. So it'll stop anything after your post being shown to the browser. Another one is to add an iframe to sort of take over the site, if you like. So to demonstrate that, let's just add an iframe tag here. You have to add a bit of CSS code, so using a style tag, style equals, you do position fixed to make it stay in the same place regardless of if the user scrolls. You do top 0 pixels, which means force it to stay at the top, left 0 pixels, which means force it to stay at the left, and you do width 100% and height 100%, which makes it the full size of the page, browser window. You also have to do border none to stop it having a border, because by default they have a horrible looking border, and as well you need to do z index 99, which will force it to be above any element on the page, providing the developer hasn't used z index 99, which you wouldn't really, because it's not a very common thing to do. So then if we just close that tag off, you also need to add border equals 0 as well to make Internet Explorer work. And obviously the source of the iframe, which we can just set to phpacademy.org. And if we hit post now, you can see that our guestbook.php page is now the PHP Academy website. And we can do all kinds of things, like even if we click on the links, like if we click on, say, what can I click on that won't show me? Video list. If we go to the video list, you can see that the scrolling works. It looks exactly like you're on the PHP Academy website, even though our URL, we haven't just been redirected. Our URL is still guestbook.php. And now this is obviously a very serious problem, because it's a huge change to the site, and this is basically, well, it's destroyed your website. Anyway, I will have to remove this because it prevents me doing any. Oh yeah, this is actually quite another good point. I'll just expand the text. The problem here is that people are able to inject HTML. So in the database, you actually see the plain text HTML code. So you see the actual strong tags and you see the actual iframe tags. And what we need to do is sort of remove these control characters, or the meaning of these control characters. It's similar to the the SQL injection example, where single quotes were control characters and you needed to escape them. You can't exactly escape HTML in the same way by preceding it with a backward slash, but you can convert them to HTML entities. So I'm going to have to remove this iframe example, so let's just remove that. So if we just go back to our guestbook page and reload this, the PHP Academy website will disappear. And what we need to do is fix this here so that our input is sufficiently sanitized. So we can do that using the HTML entities function. And what this function does is replace any character like that with its HTML entity, which for that one is LT, like that. And when that is sort of saved in the database and then output to the browser, it will actually be displayed on the browser page as this, not this. So it'll display as a literal one of those, and won't have any meaning. So it won't be able to affect the sort of, well, the working of the site. So what we do is message equals HTML entities of message. Don't need that new line there. And what that will do is, well, it'll just do what I just said. It'll convert the control characters to HTML entities. So let's go back to our page and try the bold example again. So if we do strong, this is a post. I need to think of something else to put. And if we hit post now, oh, I spelled HTML entities wrong. And yes. So if we go back to our page and ignore that error, hit resend, you can see we get this output with the actual strong tags as they were typed. But if we look in our database, hit browse, you can see that they have been converted to their entities. And this means that sort of XSS attacks are essentially impossible, because the user has to be able to inject a tag to be able to do anything. There is another little problem with characters other than, you know, standard English letters and numbers. So the way to fix that is by defining the character set. And you can look into this more on php.net, but basically what you need to do is pass in, because this function takes 3 parameters, the second 2 are optional. The third one defines the character set that you are using, so you need to pass in the second one to be able to get to the third one. So the default for the second one is the constant ent_compat, and then the character set we want to use is UTF-8, and that will make it work for sort of higher valued characters, like things with accents and stuff like that. Otherwise you'll get sort of weird corruption. And there are also, if you don't do this, there are sort of special character strings you can pass in to make XSS another possible again. So you do need to add this character set thing. Anyway, that is how to prevent XSS attacks and cross-site scripting. Well, not they're the same thing. So thanks for watching, and hopefully this was useful.